So we'll start off here with a brief presentation of our WorkBC Employment Services overview, and then we're going to hand it over to Juan for the presentation, the bulk of our workshop today, and we're going to be covering topics like writing and tailoring effective resumes and cover letters, preparing for convincing interviews, essential topics on Canadian workplace culture, power of networking, and we'll also learn more about ICA in general. Before we open up the floor at the very end for questions and comments, if you do have questions, please feel free to raise your hand or you can pop a question in the chat. If we don't get it to anything right away, then we will get to all of them at the end. Thanks so much. So yeah, to start and dive right into WorkBC Centre Westshore and Souk Employment Services. So first off, for all of you who may not be familiar with us, WorkBC Employment Services are free and available to all unemployed British Columbians who are seeking employment and are legally eligible to work in BC. Some employed individuals may also be eligible for our services, such as those who are at risk of losing their current job or are underemployed British Columbians with a disability. WorkBC centers are located all across British Columbia. The great thing about this is if you do register with one of our centers and you happen to move afterwards, we can transfer your case. So it's great in that way. WorkBC offers a range of services that support job seekers to improve employment readiness and to find or maintain your employment. Additionally, any BC job seeker can access the self-serve resource area of WorkBC Employment Service Centers, and this is a great resource as well. So yeah, diving in a little bit more detail into all of our services. So like we just mentioned, our resource center is open to all job seekers. You can come in and use our computers for all of your job search needs, such as accessing a printer or a photocopier for your job search documents. And a staff member will be available to assist you in any way that you need or answer any questions that you might have. And these services are provided on a drop-in or an appointment basis. Next, looking at our workshops here, these are really incredible resources and they're provided in person at our Westshore and Souk centers. However, there are virtual options as well. And these workshops cover all aspects of job search and job retention to ensure that you feel confident that you can achieve your goals. We offer topics like resume building, career planning, interview skills, how to access the hidden job market, computer skills, financial literacy, and more. Looking at wage subsidy here, this is a really excellent program. It's designed to assist unemployed individuals or underemployed individuals to enhance their skills on the job. So the wage subsidy program does this by assisting the employer when hiring someone who lacks all the necessary skills for a position by offering a percentage of your wages for a duration of up to 24 weeks. So this is a really great opportunity for individuals who want to move into a role and you might need a little bit more help getting the training necessary. This program is here to support both you and the employer. We also provide personal employment planning. This is individualized sessions with an employment advisor to help you build your return to work action plan and helping you define your path to success. These are incredibly valuable and amazing working with our employment advisors. Next, looking at job start support and job sustainment services. Job start support refers to our ability to provide work clothing such as boots, scrubs, tools, or short courses like food safe and first aid. And they can be made available to those who are unable to afford it and help with starting up in your new role. Job sustainment services. This is where we provide services to help you resolve your issues impacting your ability to maintain employment. This can look like providing on-the-job or in-office support from experienced job coaches. And they can also help you mediate disputes with your employers, learn new procedures, or gain insight into today's workplace culture. Last but certainly not least is our job listings and labor market info newsletter job links. As a registered client of the Westshore or Souk WorkBC centers, you can receive this newsletter, which features a daily list of job leads. It covers local employment information, as well as local employment events and programs that are available to assist you. So an incredibly great resource that is centralized to give you everything that you need. To learn more about any of the services that we've just mentioned, you can go to our website at workbccentre-langford.ca to read on any of these in more detail. The great thing is that additional resource that we have is our YouTube channel where you can watch recorded workshops that we have hosted in the past, just like the one that we are hosting today. We've covered topics such as employment standards. We did an Uncovering Crown Corporations Roles information session to dive more into different roles and different opportunities working in Crown corporations. We hosted a Women in Trades information session. And there's so much more. This is a really great place to catch up on an event that you might have missed. Just to kind of conclude and wrap up our employment services overview, just to showcase our contact information here. Highly suggest come in and see us in our center, talk to our community resource specialists who are both friendly and incredibly knowledgeable. They can walk you through eligibility and so much more, an excellent resource, whether you'd like to come in person, call us, or visit our website. Does anybody have any questions before I hand it over to Juan? And just to remind you again, if you think of something later that happened earlier on the presentation that you want to ask a question about, hold on to it, pop it into the chat, and we will come back at the end to answer any questions that you might have. Other than that, I will end my presentation here and hand it over to Juan from the Intercultural Association of Greater Victoria. Thank you.
Hello, Maya. Hello, everyone. My name is Juan Cuesta. I am the Employment Services Coordinator here at the Intercultural Association of Greater Victoria. So thank you, Maya, for the invitation to provide this workshop. And I just want to make sure that... Are you being able to see my screen now? Okay, great, perfect. Let me just get this started. Okay. Well, thank you very much for being here. I would like also to start by acknowledging that ICA does its work on the Coast Salish nations on whose traditional territories we support newcomers. We feel very grateful to live here, and we honor the nations who have always cared for these lands, waters, and air, and continue to do so today. Let me start first by making an introduction of what ICA does as an organization. We have been in Victoria for over 50 years now, providing a wide range of services to newcomers. The main purpose of this organization has always been to support the full integration of newcomer and immigrants and refugees into the social, the economic, and the civic life of the capital region of British Columbia. As a matter of fact, ICA started 50 years ago as a folk festival, inviting the community to participate in this festival and to promote more inclusion and diversity from certain marginalized communities that were happening at that time. And later on, it became a nonprofit organization as it is today. We provide a wide range of services that newcomers and immigrants need when they arrived as newcomers here at the City of Victoria. Among those services, we have one of the most important ones and mostly frequently used, which is the settlement support services. In these services, we provide key and essential information to immigrants and refugees related to housing, banking, how to have all the legal authorization to work in Canada, how to basically establish your new life here in Canada. Related to the settlement services, we also have the youth and family services, which is another team that their main purpose is to connect the families, the just arrived families, with educational institutions, with recreational centers, and to provide the emotional support as well that they might need facing this new challenge, which is arriving to a new country. We also have settlement workers in schools, so we provide inside support services to students, especially for the first couple of weeks of integrating their lives into the new educational institution. And also, as part of the settlement services, we provide language instruction for newcomers to Canada. So we provide in-person and virtual English language classes. We have 8 levels in total, starting from level 1 up to level 8. We provide sessions in the morning and in the evenings as well. And that is also one of the very important components and we try to have an integration of all these services so the newcomers and immigrants receive all the attention that they need, especially during the first 6 months of the their stay here in Canada. We also provide interpretation and translation services. Many newcomers face the reality of the challenge of having to translate their documents. Other immigrants might arrive with a very low level of English or not English at all. So we also provide the interpretation services, having someone always around them to help them to be able to communicate with their counterparts. Now the other part, which I am part of the team, is the employment services. We basically work with different funders, mainly the federal and the provincial governments are our main funders for several employment programs that we have here at ICA that are complementary to the services that you may be receiving in either in a WorkBC location, for instance. So we have programs such as the Career Paths for Skilled Immigrants. That is a program that is eligible for permanent residents and protected persons, which basically provides financial funds and financial assistance to clients who want to develop their careers in the same field where they already bring their own experience and skills from their home country. We also have the Workplace Occupational Readiness and Connections for Women, is we call the Work for Women program. It is a skills training program specifically targeted for persons who identified as women, and where we also provide skills training, connections, support with employers around the city. On the other side, we also have programs that are specifically industry related, such as the Gateway to Tourism and Hospitality for Newcomers. This is a program that is specifically designed for newcomers who want to develop a career in the hospitality and the tourism industry, providing also a wide range of connections with employers, skills training, certifications, licenses that you might need to be able to apply for a specific job in this industry. And we also have now the Migrant Workers Program, which is an employment program designed specifically for temporary residents who have a closed work permit, who are considered temporary foreign workers under a closed work permit. And this is a program specifically designed for this population with specific needs that they usually have with that status. Moving on, we also have the Game Changer program. This is one of the programs that is targeted specifically for young population of the ages between 17 and 29 years old. It's a cohort-based program. We provide skills training and several certifications such as first aid, CPR in an 8-week program that is provided. And we also have connections as well with employers and financial assistance in related to several certifications that the participant might need. We also have a new program that we started this year, which is called the Success in Finding Work. And this is a program targeted for adult and mature newcomers throughout employment. We provide core services such as the skills training, employment readiness, employment placements, and personal supports. So the good advantage of this program is now that not only permanent residents, but also immigrants with a work permit are also eligible to participate in this 10-week cohort-based program. Continuing with the different services and activities that we do at ICA, we also provide workshops and seminars on a weekly basis. You're going to see now some of the information that we provide at the employment workshops that we have on a weekly basis. But we also organize and host community events. We also organize and participate in several cultural events around the city. As I said, it's always with the purpose of connecting newcomers, connecting the immigration population, the immigrant population with the community, with several community partners, with several institutions, and promoting that integration and inclusivity and diversity. So as part of these services, what we have here in the employment services is that we have a 4 workshop series that we facilitate on a monthly basis. And usually every Wednesday from 9:30 to 12:30, we provide workshops related to writing resumes and cover letters. That is the first topic that we provide. The second one is succeeding in job interviews. The third one is the Canadian workplace culture, and the fourth one is the power of networking. We believe, based on the experience that we've had, is that these are the 4 components that immigrants and refugees need to know to be ready to apply, to start applying for jobs and developing a career here in the Greater Victoria area. We have seen that this information is essential for them to be able to actually find an employment that immigrants consider meaningful, and where they actually can continue developing their skills and their abilities. So what I'm going to talk about a little bit is, it is just a main summary of these 4 workshops that covering the main aspects of each topic. So please feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions, if you want to make a comment, or if you want me to make additional comments or clarify anything about this, please, you're totally welcome to do so. So starting with writing resumes and cover letters, right? One of the main objectives and expectations of this workshop is help the participants to gain knowledge and the confidence to craft a successful resume and cover letter. Some of the topics that we explore in this workshop are what to put in your resume, what should be the order, what should be the content of your resume, such as summary, highlights, experience, education, volunteering, and how to actually tailor your resume for the job post that you want. One of the main barriers that we have seen that immigrants face when finding a job or being called for an interview is that they do not know exactly what employers are looking for when they are reviewing resumes, and then when they are selecting candidates for interviews. And there are significant cultural differences, what is considered to be an effective resume in Canada versus what is considered to be an effective resume in many other cultures in the world. Usually immigrants come to Canada with the idea of having a curriculum vitae, not necessarily a resume, where every single experience and skill is being listed in a resume. So usually resumes tend to be very long and include all the experience that the candidate has had during their work lifetime. And that is not necessarily what employers here in Canada are used to, or they are usually the type of information that they seek in a resume. So these workshops effectively, and that's exactly the purpose of this resume, is that the workshop is that you actually get to know exactly how to tailor and how to craft a resume. What it is the relevant information that must be considered in order to be in a resume. And we also talk a lot about the purpose of the resumes, because that is another different expectation that we see among newcomers, is that there is this misconception that the resumes are considered to be the document that will lead us to a job, to find a job. And actually that's not true. What the real purpose of resume is basically getting an interview, right? So, and for that, the resume should clearly state how your qualifications are matching what the recruiters are looking for a specific positions. What are the skills and the relevant work experience that you bring that can bring you to an employer, right? That can get you an interview. So basically the main purpose of a resume is actually to lead you for an interview, not necessarily to be hired. So that is one of the key parts of how to tailor your resume, how to put it in a way that is effective, that actually calls the attention from a recruiter, and that makes you within or included within usually the 4 or 5 candidates that will be selected for an interview. So this is one of the purposes of the workshop. We provide all that information, and that is one of the key things to consider when drafting and tailoring a resume for a specific job. It is how can you actually show your value? How can you actually include what is relevant from you to the specific position that you are applying? And regarding to this, in how to include that relevant information, there are actually two types of resumes that you can work on. Usually the one that is the most frequently used, however, it's not necessarily the most effective, is the chronological one, right? That is one of the most frequently types of resumes used for applications where you're basically focusing most of the information that you're providing in your resume is about your professional history, about your employment history. But when you're in a new country or when you're applying to a new field or a new industry, not necessarily that professional history is what is relevant for the position that you're applying for. So that basically puts a challenge because it basically means that most of the information that the recruiter or the hiring manager is reading about your resume, it's not necessarily the most relevant information about you. And that is one of the main issues that we see that immigrants are not being shortlisted for interviews, is because the way that they have included their information in a chronological resume, it's not necessarily the most effective way to showcase or highlight your skills and the relevant experience that you bring for a specific position. So that is why we usually suggest and we work with a second type of resume, which is the functional resume. The functional resume, it's actually a type of resume where the applicant can rely on their skills, the relevant skills for that specific position, rather than the work history. Again, work history usually it's not necessarily compatible or it's matching what with the new position that the applicant is applying for. And relying on your relevant skills is a more direct way to showcase that your skills, your value, it is a good fit with the position that you're applying to. So this is what you can see in the screen. This is one type of format of functional resume that we strongly suggest for newcomers. Again, specifically if the position that you're applying for, it's a different industry, it's a different occupation than the one that you bring your employment history. And that is a way where you can actually have more space to include your skills such as leadership, soft skills like communication skills, hard skills, technical skills like programming, technological, computer-based, organizational skills, time management skills, all those skills that are very sought after by employers. Having a functional resume, it is a much better and much effective way of doing it. You can still include obviously your work history, that is also important, but it won't be the most relevant information that will be in your resume. Please, if you have any questions about this, please feel free to raise your hand. What are some of the things that we also recommend not doing it in your resume? For instance, don't use an inappropriate email addresses. We have seen newcomers coming with email addresses that were created 10, 15 years ago, and sometimes with funny names or very long names. We suggest usually to create a new email address, more professional, that includes your name, your last name, which will be much easier for the employer to contact you, rather those all inappropriate email addresses, or with too many bullets or personal pronouns. So usually the readability of a resume is also very important. Including too many bullets in a resume might affect the readability of your resume. So it is important not only the content that you included, but also the way that you're included the information in a resume. It is very important. Other things to keep in mind about this is don't include unnecessary personal information. Many people come from different cultures where it's normal to include a photograph, to include the pronouns, to include even a national identity number or the marital status. That information is not relevant. It's obviously even for the discriminatory laws that Canada has, they are not to be included in a resume. So that is also very important to keep in mind. And don't make general statements or just simply list job responsibilities. It's very important to craft the information. And again, make sure that the information that you're including in a resume is the information that is relevant for that specific position that you're applying for. In that way, even if it takes a little bit more time to apply for several jobs that you might be interested in, it will be more effective rather than just using the same resume for several positions. Because again, employers here in Canada are very used to seeing targeted and tailored resumes. That's basically one of the first signs that show to a recruiter that the candidate is very interested in working in that organization, that actually the candidate took the necessary time to craft and to tailor a resume according to the position that the applicant is applying to. So that might take some time, but it again is one of the first signs that an employer seeks in job applications. Okay, what should be the suggested structure of a resume? Having a header or a professional summary about you might be very important. It's usually 2 to 4 sentences about your qualifications, why do you want the job. This is also an opportunity to discuss how you can impress with your skills and achievements related to the position that you're applying to. Then you can include your highlights. Usually your highlights is what you want the employer to remember about you. After they have finished reading your resume, you want to include here what they want to remember about you. And that is one of the most important things because that is when the employer starts determining whether you're going to be shortlisted for an interview or whether you won't be shortlisted, because it will be based on the highlights of your qualifications if they actually match what they are looking for in the position that, right? Work experience is important, not too long, but the most relevant information should be included in there. Education and training as well. That is also very important. Any certifications, any credentials that make you qualified for the position they're applying for, it is very important to be included, as well as volunteering and any other information that might be requested for the employer. Volunteering is also a way of showing your level of proactiveness. It is a way of showing how you're used to taking initiative, not only and also contributing to the community. So volunteering is also something that we strongly suggest not only to include in resumes, but actually get volunteer experience here in Victoria, here in Canada, is also very, very important. I don't know if there's any questions related to resumes. Okay, I'm going to continue. I'm going to go now with over what I covered later. This will be also very quick, but it's as you have probably seen in your experience, there are certain positions that request a cover letter. In other positions, cover letter is optional, and in certain positions, it's not even required. You don't need to write a cover letter. But in the ones that either it is required or is an option, we strongly suggest to write a cover letter because it is the perfect complement for a good and an effective resume and might be a way to guarantee that the employer will select you for an interview. So that is why it's important including a cover letter, is that you show that you're willing to take the extra time, that you're very serious and really interested in the position and in the company that you're applying for. It is also to demonstrate how your skills and experience match the job in a more personable way. Usually in a resume, you have to include your skills, you have to include your experience, but it's very difficult in a resume to include, for instance, a project that you worked on or how actually you developed a skill, right? Or sometimes it might be hard to explain why there's a gap in your work history. What if there are a couple years that you didn't work, that you didn't do anything at all? So a cover letter is the perfect way of including that information, so that the cover letter becomes a good complement of your resume. So it's usually something that you will also have to tailor and customize according to every single position that you are applying for, because it should state, why do you think you're a good match? Why do you think you're a good fit for that position in particularly? So it is a very good complement of what is being in a resume, right? And this is the structure of a cover letter. It should contain a header with clear stating your name and your contact information. That should be on top of your cover letter. So your employer, in case they are interested in calling you for an interview, it will be very easy for them to grab that information and start contacting you, right? The company's information to the one that you are actually applying for should be stated there. It's a way to show that this cover letter has been customized and has been personalized to the specific position they're applying to, right? There should contain also an opening, a phrase or a paragraph where you are expressing your interest in that specific position in that organization, and it starts mentioning why you think you could be a good match. It will be based on the years of experience that you have doing what the position is requesting, or it might be because a relevant skill that you bring, or a relevant education that you took that is being required by this position. So that is the first paragraph. The opening should say that, because it will draw the attention of the hiring manager to continue reading. Yeah, according to several surveys, there is approximately 70% of recruiters that mention that they only continue reading cover letters if the first paragraph is relevant and interesting. 70%. If they find that this first paragraph is not relevant, they won't continue reading the cover letter and they will just discard this application. So that's why it's very important to include a very compelling and effective first paragraph in your cover letter. However, after that, it's very important also to include the body of the cover letter, right? You will have to list there the 3 or 4 most important reasons why do you think you're a good for that particular position, right? So for instance, if you're applying for a customer service representative position, right, you may want to include in your body of your cover letter those 3 or 4 skills that you believe make you a good fit for that position, right? And it could be experiences with skills related to active listening, to empathy, to being able to deal with difficult clients or difficult situations, right? So in the body of the cover letter, you will explain that you already bring experience working with difficult clients, that you have developed active listening skills, that you have developed good communication skills, that you bring techniques in de-escalating difficult situations with upset clients, for instance, or that you have a deep knowledge of policies and guidelines related to customer service. So the body is being built in a cover letter with the 3 or 4 most important or most relevant skills and experience that you can bring to this position they're applying for, right? And then you have a closing, just basically showing again how much you're interested in this position, how would you love to be called for an interview, and at the end you have a complimentary and a close and a signature. Right, you can also include at the end your email address, your phone number, so it will be very easy for the hiring manager or for the recruiter to contact you for an interview. Again, cover letters, very effective way to include in to be a complement of your resume. Make sure that both things, both documents, including the cover letter and the resume, are connected, that the information is consistent, and that it shows clearly how you are matching the criteria for the position that you're applying for. We work here a lot with immigrants, and we see the differences in different cultures. And for instance, many people come with the idea that even though they do not have the skills or the experience for a specific position, they have the willingness. They really want that opportunity, and they are very eager to learn something new. In our experience, most of the positions or most of the employers actually are expecting the candidates to be ready for the position. And this is a very important and significant cultural difference with other parts of the world, where employers sometimes, or many times, might be willing to provide the training necessary for the person to be able to fulfill that position. And so they look a lot for people with potential, with high potential, and the eagerness to fill that position. Sometimes I see a lot of clients and immigrants applying for positions where they do not necessarily are including their most relevant skills, or the experience is matching with what the employer is saying, and they are still expecting, according to their experience, that the employer will call them for an interview. So in our experience, that in most of the cases do not happen. So again, it is very, very important. We strongly suggest that you get all the fundamentals of how to craft and how to tailor an effective resume that is matching with what the employer is requesting. And more nowadays that the unemployment rate is slightly increasing. Employers right now have on average between 14 and 15 applications for every single position that they post online. So it is very competitive, the market nowadays. It is, and it's becoming this trend of being more competitive, having more people in the market and more people looking for work. So it is very important to have compelling documents that will lead you to be among the people shortlisted for an interview. I don't know if there's any questions about this. Okay, perfect. So let's continue now with interview skills. Once you have been shortlisted for an interview, what is the most important thing about the interviews? And let's start with the purpose of the interview, right? The purpose of an interview, even though it might seem to be obvious, it is important to determine that the purpose of the interview is to determine if the applicant's skills, experience, and personality meet the job requirements. So that third word is key. It's an absolute essential. If it's your personality meets the job's requirement. So it's not only your skills and experience that you have included in your resume. That's the reason why they're calling you in for an interview. But actually, the interview will be the mean by which the employer will determine whether you are a good fit for that position and for the organization, or whether you are not. So not necessarily the job goes to the most qualified person, but usually goes to the person who will fit the most, who will be the best fit for the position in terms of their skills, their experience, but also about their personality. So communication skills, again, is absolutely key in interviews. And the magic word, I will say, for an interview is preparation. Preparation is absolutely key. Is 90% of the job success is by preparing for an interview. Otherwise, improvisation are not being prepared an interview. won't be an effective way. So how can you prepare for an interview? This is very important also to understand. Doing some background research is very important to do some research about the organization that you're applying for. Reviewing your resume and your cover letter. Remember that you will be applying, or that you're applying to several positions, probably with several formats of resumes, with several resumes. So you need to keep in mind what was the resume that you'd use for that specific position that you're being called for an interview, right? Because they're going to be asking questions about that resume. Practice answers to common questions interviews, right? So if you are applying for a customer service position, for instance, it is 99% of probabilities that will ask you questions about your experience with customers, right? How did you manage a situation with a difficult client? How did you have experience de-escalating difficult situations? If you are how familiar are you with adapting to guidelines and regulations in a highly regulated environment, right? So those are typical questions that you probably will be asked in an interview. So it's important that you already have the answers prepared for those questions, not to improvise during the interview. So again, preparation for those scenarios, reviewing those scenarios in your experience is also very important, right? And another component important in interview is when you are asking questions to the interviewers. What do you want to know about the organization? What do you want to know about the position? So every single detail that you share in an interview is being included in the evaluation, whether you are going to be selected or not, right? And asking relevant questions is also it is also a very effective way of showing if you're the right fit for that position or not. Okay, so these are some of the things that are very important to include in the interview. Again, preparedness is very, very important, and practice, especially as a newcomer, being English being our second language, is very, very important to practice and to rehearse the interview before it is actually happening. It also helps to reduce the level of anxiety or nervousness that we might be feeling during an interview, right? So usually when you are nervous, you will be speaking very fast. You will not be pronouncing or enunciating correctly or in your best way to do it. So it will lead to not being effective in an interview, right? So how can you cope with that is actually by practicing. Practicing is very important. So remember, to prepare and to practice for an interview are key elements of being successful in an interview. What is usually the typical interview format in case you haven't been in one? And usually there is and now it's very common for employers to have a panel of interviewers. You will not necessarily be interviewing only for one person. Usually now it includes somebody from human resources and a panel of interviewers. That is very common here in Victoria. Employers tend to make decisions on hiring on a committee basis and not on an individual level. It's not only one person who is deciding who is going to be the selected candidate. It's usually a panel of interviewers who will decide. So get used to that. Because that's important. I remember one of our clients preparing for an interview, but this person expected to be interviewed only by one person. So when he got to the interview, actually there was a panel of four interviewers. He got completely off his mind because of this situation. He was not expecting to have a panel of interviewers. He made that situation made him so nervous that he was not actually able to answer effectively the questions that he was prepared for. So So keep that in mind and be prepared to be interviewed by 2 or 3 people in a single interview. And they will also outline the process. They will explain to you how long will the interview go on. Usually there's some time that you will have the opportunity to ask questions to the panel as well. In certain cases, you will be asked to make presentations. For instance, if they want to see how well you are at presenting information or creating a report or creating a summary, you might be asked to present that. There also, after this, will be a series of questions from the panel. Usually it takes between 35 to 40 minutes, the time where questions will be happening to you. And then it will be followed by 10 to 15 minutes of time for you to ask relevant questions to the panel as well. Again, related to the position they're applying to, the organization. It could be the length and the hiring process, how long it's going to take, and any other questions that you would like to clarify in terms of, for instance, the benefit, or even if the wage salary, although nowadays, most of the positions in the market include the salary range that the organization is willing to pay for that position. So that is basically some of the information and the format that you should be prepared for an interview. But again, I won't get tired of reinforcing the concept of mentioning how important it is to prepare for an interview and to practice the questions that you think you will be asked during an interview. That is one of the most important topics of landing a job here in Canada, especially the first one, is the level of preparedness and the level of readiness that you will show in an interview. Okay. During the interview, show your best attitude. Employers are not only evaluating the content of the information that you're providing, but they are also, and most importantly, also evaluating your nonverbal communication, how your body language is being set on the interview, your attitude, your energy, how are you conveying your messages, how are you being able actually to show your value, right? So that's what they are assessing as well. They are visualizing whether you will be a good fit in their organization or not, who will be the best person to be part of this organization. So make sure that you work and you practice on these things as well. And make sure that you show you show the energy and the desire that you really want this job. Make sure that your body language is consistent with that you're actually conveying that value during the interview process, right? Another thing important in terms of interview forms is how structured the interview is. Usually, you will have most of the interviews are structured in the way that I mentioned, but you may also have informal interviews, or you might have those screening calls that usually happen before a formal interview. It's usually human resources validating what is the why you apply for that position, why you're interested in working for them, if you're okay with the proposed salary range they're going to pay. So if they have a list of several candidates that might be a good fit, they are not going to have 10 interviews for a position, for instance. They're not going to go with several hours interviewing people. No, they are going to shortlist. So in order to do that, they might make quick phone calls just to screen out people from their process based on the answer that they are providing. So very important that you also be prepared for those quick calls. Make sure that you are in a good place to answer those calls, that you can actually concentrate on the phone call, and that the other person can hear you clearly, and that you can also clearly hear the questions that you're being asked. So that is very important. Don't rush and don't make the mistake of accepting phone calls on the streets while you're walking or while you are doing something else. most probably you won't do good. You won't do good on those situations, and you might not be selected for the next step of the process. So make sure that you take that very seriously if that happens. And usually during interviews, you will be asked again behavioral questions and situational interviews, situational questions as well, right? Behavioral questions are the ones about your past experiences. So they want to see how you behaved in similar situations that you will be facing in this new role. So they want to see if you already have the experience, or if you have already developed the skills that is required in that. Going back again to the same example of customer service, right? They wanna hear from you a situation dealing with a difficult client, or a situation where you had to overcome a challenge in a particular position. They want to hear your story, right? So that is behavioral, that you want to show what you did, what your actions were, how did they took place, where did they took place, what was the result, what was the outcome of your actions. But there might be also questions, situational questions. The typical question is, what would you do if, right? So again, they want to see how would you respond to a specific situation. What will be your level of preparedness for that situation, right? And finally, there might also be tests or assignments that you have to complete as part of the interviewing process. I have particularly seen that happening here if you're applying for positions in the provincial government. They usually, even before the interview, they usually will run some tests and assessments or assignments just to review and assess your technical knowledge of the position that you're applying for, right? And again, related to or regarding the behavioral questions, most of the companies and the organizations work with the STAR method. This is the STAR method that employers are expecting from their candidates, the applicants, to respond behavioral questions. They want to see how structured you are communicating your experiences. And STAR stands for situation, task, action, and results. These are the 4 things that they want to see how you respond on a specific question, how you respond to a specific question, right? The situation provides the background, provides the context of the example or the experience that you're going to share. The task implies all the actions that you took to resolve that issue or resolve the challenge that you explained during the situational part, right? And that is the most important thing. What did you do? What did you do to solve the issue or to come up with the solution? What actions specifically you took, right? And the result is what is the outcome, right? What is the result of this? And if you also include a personal learning, it's even better, right? Many people say, no, not only include results, but also what were your learnings about that experience? What did you learn from that experience? So that's some of the things that employers are expecting to hear from you in a behavioral question, right? Don't describe how would you behave, because you have to be very clear and very and listen very carefully when an employer asks a question, whether it's behavioral or whether it's situational. Again, situational questions is what would you do? So then you can reply to that specific question with what would you do? I will behave. However, in behavioral is about past experiences, right? What did you do in this case? So make sure that you are referring to a past experience that you live when you are providing that information, right? So that gives the recruiter a clear idea of whether you bring the experience, whether you already develop that skills or not necessarily. Okay, so that is very important to keep in mind. And behavioral questions usually are answered with specific examples, not with general. It's not a good answer to say, yeah, I usually deal with difficult clients in this way. No, they don't want to hear that. They want to hear specifically a situation where you worked with a difficult client. They want to understand that part. So that is also, again, they are evaluating, they are assessing your communication skills as well. How well structured you are in communicating your experiences, your past experiences. Okay. Any questions about interviews?
Not for now, thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you. The third part of the third series of workshops that we provide in a deeper level is about the Canadian workplace culture. And that is defining the Canadian culture is it's a good way of showing our clients what they can expect when they actually start working there. Because there are, again, significant differences when it comes to the way that certain organizations and industries work in different parts of the world. So it's important for you to be aware that one of the most important topics related to the Canadian workplace culture is that Canada is defined as a large, very large middle income population, non-hierarchical, bicultural and multicultural, where mutual respect and tolerance are highly regarded, and that you will find, right? These people considered to be very polite, very diplomat, and very moderate in terms of the communication styles, right? It is considered an individualistic culture, although Canadians value contribution to community, but it is considered versus other cultures, it is considered a very individualistic culture. So that is why it's also very important when you are including your answers for interviews in terms of what you did, what were your accomplishments, not as a team, but what were your accomplishments, because it is considered a very individualistic culture as well. And in terms of interaction and presentation, the Canadian culture is considered to be informal and casual. So not high levels of formality in terms of dressing, in terms of communication, but rather a more casual, friendly environment where you are being highly respected as an individual. Your freedoms, your choices are highly respected. Nobody questions that, so you feel welcome everywhere. But again, this is just a capsule of all the information that we provide in the workplace culture of the things that you can expect, right? And one of the most important things is about communication styles, right? What is the level of communication style in Canada related to the other countries, right? And I'm sorry here, I hope you're seeing it right. But there are certain countries, for instance, Germany, the Netherlands, are considered to be the most direct countries in terms of communication styles, while the Southeast of Asia and Japan, Latin America are considered the countries with the most direct style of communication. Canada is somewhat between the middle, tending to be to direct communication rather than communication style. Again, this is just an average. This is just something to give you an overview, an idea of what you can expect. But of course, every single organization has its own environment, its own way of communicating one another. So you can expect many different things, right? But again, you will be it will be very normal to hear phrases like, would you mind? I was wondering if you could. So that is not direct communication, is rather considered to be indirect communication. I'm afraid of, in case they want to decline something, or it seems to me when they want to present an opinion, they do not necessarily will say that as if it's the true, but stating very clearly that it seems to me. So these are some of the phrases that you will hear constantly on a work place environment. That is considered to be like the norm. Like it will be like something that you will be used to doing, rather than being too direct into what you're asking. So people tend to be very diplomatic in their communications, especially if they do not necessarily know well whom they are working for. It will depend on the situation, but being diplomat, being very kind and polite in communications is something that is expected as well to have. Okay. And finally, the power of networking. So the networking is a very good complement for the job seeking strategies and the job seeking process. Mainly because the recruiters and employers hire in a different direction that most people look for jobs in the position, right? Especially here in Victoria, being a middle city, being not necessarily a big city, contacts from your own contacts, referrals, internal promotions are a very common way of getting people hired. So job postings and recruitment agencies are usually the least part of where hiring managers and recruiters are getting their sources for applicants from. So it's very important, the networking and the word of mouth and the referral process. So that's why it's very important in this market to network and to get the information. Let's keep in mind that we are in a new place, we're in a new market, we do not know many things. And we might be missing opportunities by only applying for jobs that are posted in the different portals like Indeed or LinkedIn, right? However, a lot of opportunities usually come up with meeting people, and usually meeting new people is one of the most important sources of getting the right type of information that you need to apply for a job, right? So networking is highly recommended for people who wants to be more connected with the community, who wants to acquire more relevant information for their job seeking process. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about a couple tools that we provide in this networking workshop. If you want to get a deeper insight of the network, you are more than welcome to join one of the employment workshops that we provide. But just to make sure and assure that networking is considered a two-way stream interaction where professionals connect and help each other. So it is a relationship building connection. It's not a tool, or networking is not necessarily just to request for a job interview. That is not how networking does. So make sure that you get familiar with the fundamentals of networking, of how people who are already here are expecting to interact with newcomers. How can those relationships can be built, right? So that is very important. I strongly suggest for you to gain additional information to gain deeper insights of the importance of networking in the workplace, right? And one of the tools actually that we promote to gain a networking, to be effective on networking, is to preparing your elevator pitch, to preparing your own introduction. So that is very important. When you're meeting somebody new in an event, what would you say about you, right? You need to explain very concisely and very objectively what do you do as a professional? What do you do? Who do you do it for? How do you do, and why it matters, right? Highlighting relevant career experiences and sharing also your goal and a call to action. So for instance, I can say that my name is Juan. I help newcomers find employment by offering career counseling and services that will build the skills and the knowledge they need to succeed in the Canadian workforce. So that could be my elevator pitch. That will be a way that I introduce myself to new people, so they exactly know what do I do and what I'm looking for in that new connection that I want to create. So again, make sure that my suggestion is explore more insights about networking, the different tools that you can use. Preparing an elevator pitch is a very good way very effective way of doing networking. Make sure you practice that, make sure that you create that. An elevator pitch also can help you answer the typical question in an interview is, tell me a little bit about yourself and why you applied for this position. You can answer that question by creating your elevator pitch. So again, that is a very effective tool if you want to increase your level of networking here, which is highly recommended to do it. A second tool that we usually work with our clients is by making them familiar and comfortable asking for informational interviews. So informational interviews are not job interviews, are actually a way where you can get additional information for the field or the industry that you want to work for, or for an organization that you want to work for. So in this case, you can ask to connect with new people to request for an informational interview. That is a conversation in which a person seeks insights on a career path, an industry, or a company, or basically just general career advice from someone with experience and knowledge in the areas of interest. Right. So let's say, for instance, that you want to get a job as an accountant, or you want to have a job in an accounting. So you don't know what are the you want to know more about accounting jobs in Victoria. What are the qualifications that the employers are looking for? What is the terminology? What is the career path for that, right? So instead of just applying for jobs in accounting, you might be able to find somebody who is actually working in accounting. It might be a good idea to ask this person for an informational interview. So you will be basically collecting information that will help you in your job search process. And it's also a way of getting to know more people in your field, in your industry, right? So it's usually, the format takes up to between 15 to 30 minutes, no more than that. And that is something that many people here in the market are very keen to do it. I have seen, and in my experience, is very positive, having informational interviews with human resources managers, human resources partners, recruiters, talent specialists, or anyone in the market that you find that might be helpful to you. It is a good way of getting that information by asking them to have an informational interview. Okay, so these are some of the benefits that you can find in an informational interview. One-on-one can be less intimidating than networking events, for instance. It will be a way to increase your connections. It will be a way of learning the steps to pursue a career or to develop a career. It will help you to prepare for future job interviews. As I said, it will be a very good way, and a relaxed, informal way of practicing your elevator pitch, on practicing why do you want to apply for jobs in that industry, or why you're interested in that specific industry. And you can also gain referrals. You can also start interacting with these professionals in the field that you want to work in, and they might be for the future contacts, future people that might help you, giving you a referral, or might help you getting contacts or gaining contacts with other people, right? So again, suggestion, dig for more information about informational interviews. And finally, the third tool that we highly recommend, and we provide additional insights in our workshops, is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is by far the largest professional network on the internet. Is highly recommended, and is very frequently used by thousands of professionals in Victoria, in the province in British Columbia. So it's a very effective way to apply for jobs, to meet new people, to gain insights, to learn new knowledge, and to develop actually your career. So definitely, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, I strongly suggest to create one. Okay, and if you want to learn more about this or any topics about job search, this is the ICA's website, icavictoria.org. And if you want to be part of this employment work